Just arriving in the studio with us is the UKIP leader, Mr Farage. Good to have you with us. Thank you very much. Well, you've had a pretty good night.
Yeah, I think so. And I think that what's happening, in Boston I heard mentioned a few minutes ago, I don't think people in Westminster actually understand what the effect of their policies has been on the lives of ordinary, decent working families. There's a town that through mass, uncontrolled immigration sees young people incapable of getting jobs, I mean, literally being prejudiced against in their own country, sees skilled men and women with their wages being driven down, huge social change in the town. And there's a feeling that government and Westminster doesn't understand this.
Do you not get it, Minister?
I think we get it perfectly well, and what I think we have to be very careful about is the sort of language that sometimes Nigel Farage and his party use around this. There are real pressures in some parts of the country around immigration. That's precisely why the government has already reduced net migration. But we equally have to avoid some of the rather emotive language that's used here. I was actually in parts of Lincolnshire.
We don't use emotive language. We use facts and the truth, such as the Romanian crime figures in London. They're shocking.
Yeah, I think also, Nigel, you ought to be very careful in future. I'm sure you will be about some of the people you have as candidates for the future.
Well, you've had a few in prison over the years too, haven't you? So, you know, that's a zero-sum game for all of us, frankly.
Yeah. Let's
get back to the political message.
When you talk about really important issues like migration and community cohesion, I think all of us agree it's important that we recognise the pressures and the difficulties that hard-working people are under. That's exactly why the coalition government has taken record numbers of low-paid people out of tax. But at the same time, that we keep the language very careful, very moderate, because actually we've got people working together in those communities. And I think there's going to be an onus on your councillors now to make sure that they can work responsibly to represent the people who have elected them.
Why responsibly?
You're going to be on the line.
Why are you saying responsibly?
Because I think there is some history to suggest that UKIP has not thought through all of its positions on a lot of issues.
Well,
they're going to be under scrutiny now.
I can assure you one thing we have thought through is that we do not think it's sensible, rational or even reasonable to open our doors on January the 1st next year to 29 million very poor people from Romania and Bulgaria. And a lot of that vote for UKIP last night are people who, without an ounce of racism in them or enmity towards anybody, saying to all of you, enough's enough.
Why is Labour not picking up on some of the concerns that the Minister's mentioned?
Well, we are, and it's interesting to note that we didn't get, in your report there, the fact that we picked up a vote in a seat in Aldershot wasn't reported. I mean, I think that came as a surprise to us. But I want to come back to this issue about agricultural workers, because last week we had a vote in the House of Commons. We held a debate on this government, Tory and Liberals, abolishing the Agricultural Wages Board, which guarantees above minimum wages for people who work on the land. And we talked about Lincolnshire being an agricultural, horticultural area. We have the end of the seasonal agricultural workers scheme coming at the end of 2013. And the question I have for this government is, are they going to renew allowing people in from beyond the European Union to come and work in low-skilled jobs in agriculture, pushing out our young unemployed people at a time when we have 2.5 million unemployed in our own country and there are 25 million unemployed people across the European Union? Are we seriously saying that the bulb growers and the fruit that needs to be picked cannot be picked by our own workforce? And we had that vote, and out and about on the doorstep, people in the areas where we've made gains were saying, we're not happy. Our friends, our neighbours are seeing their wages being driven down, and, you know, we are picking up votes in those areas.
I mean, that's an extremely good point, and I agree with everything you've just said, apart from the fact you said non-EU. We have to apply these restrictions to other EU countries as well, because that, particularly in agriculture, is where the real pressure is coming from.
When we were in government, we did that, and that's why only Romanians.
Didn't.
Yes, we did, because with the you're talking about Romania and Bulgaria, we applied transitional
so
controls to
would
those
Labour,
two.
Would Labour say? Would Labour stop the open door next year?
They are here already
yes
in
or no?
Lincolnshire. They are here already in Lincolnshire. The fear from the farmers that I talk to is that the Romanians and Bulgarians who are already here working on the land will now move to better paid work in the cities, in the coffee shops when those
Would you as a party stop
open
doors?
I'm
asking you what your policy is. Would you agree with me that given where and you've given all the figures on unemployment, and I agree with you, and the pressures on agricultural workers, do you agree with me that it's wrong to open the door unconditionally next year to Romania and Bulgaria?
What I'm saying is that
yes
it is wrong.
Is there an answer to that?
I think there is well, the government has a more immediate policy choice, which is what are they going to do about the agricultural workers scheme? That's what I would say is that Labour would not be renewing the seasonal agricultural workers scheme to allow people in from outside the European Union.
Not the question,
there is no reason to import people.
You see, and that's why there's no choice between all three of you, isn't there? There's no choice.
These are the questions.
Hang on a sec. Simon.
Yeah, can I deal with this? the European Union allows free movement, and new countries which join have the possibility of having a 7-year delay before people are allowed to move. The Labour government, under David Blunkett's decision-making in the Home Office, agreed that that should not be applied when the last wave of people, of which Poland were the biggest, came in. And so they were all allowed in immediately. The prediction of the Home Office was there would be 700,000, and we know there was 70,000, and there were 700,000.
But you supported it.
Yeah. Personally, I didn't, as it happened, Nigel, and I'm on record.
Right, okay.
But the general consensus in Parliament, Labour government and our party and others, was that that would be okay. I thought I was troubled about that, and I think we were right to be troubled. Labour then rightly agreed, when they were in power, that when Bulgaria and Romania joined, there should be a 7-year transition. That was the right decision. It comes to an end at the end of this year. It can't be changed. That decision has been made. But there are not going to be 29 million or even 20 million.
Open door to 29 million. How many will come then?
But what we've heard, I'll tell you, best estimate, we had the 2 ambassadors in Parliament last week. No, the best estimate is that there were between 5 and 10,000 from one, and between 15 and 25,000 from the other. That was the ambassadors giving evidence to Parliament. Now, I don't know, but I seem to think that Germany's economy is slightly stronger than ours, and I would assume if you were a Romanian and Bulgarian looking for a job, you might go to Germany rather than to the UK.
But the trouble is you wouldn't speak German. I've just come back from Bulgaria. The kids learn English for obvious reasons. It is the international language of the world, and it's what makes this country a magnet. And also, don't forget, London.
Don't speak German.
London
and Germany
London
has
is the greatest international city, frankly, in the world. London itself is a huge magnet.
Nigel, what you do, and which Bob, I agree with Bob, and I thought Bob made very sensible points, if I may say so, Bob, is you stoke up people's fears by citing the highest possible imaginary. You talk of 29 million people open door. It is nonsense to suggest there will be millions, I don't know, 29 million people. Of course people are troubled, and Lincolnshire know very well, I understand the issues.
We have given a prediction.
Please stop.
We have given a prediction.
Putting up the prediction.
What we've said
start being
is
more moderate
if
in
the
your
same
language.
proportion come that came from Poland and the other A8 countries, that would be 400,000 people over the next 5 years. Now, you know, that is a very real
I challenge you then
number.
for the rest of today to use only that figure and drop the 29 million.
Well, I'm not saying 29 million will come, but it's an open door to 29 million.
Just